podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, welcome to Drinking with Authors. I'm your host, Erica Lance, and with me today is
Valerie Willis.
And our guest is
John Hartness.
Woo!
Yay! Oh, wait. It's probably gauche to applaud myself. Screw it. Yay,
Yeah.
Me.
Yay! I think you should. I've constantly said we need to get an audience so that there's cheering. So it's not just us cheering for ourselves, but...
You know, having done podcasts in front of an audience, it is never as good an idea as your fans think it will be. Because edits.
Edits,
that's true.
Edits are a thing.
Yes.
And the podcast that I'm most frequently on is a quote-unquote live play podcast called Authors and Dragons. And it is recorded live, but we cut out the bits where we can't find crap on our character sheets and we're trying to make Roll20 work, or somebody gets dropped from Skype or whatever. So we've had Patreon patrons ask for the unexpurgated files, and we're like, no, really. Remember that time when you asked your parents for something and they said, I promise you really don't want it? And then you got it and you're like, oh, I really didn't want this. Just pretend I'm your dad, okay?
It's really funny because I bet you say that. Wait, okay. First, what are we drinking? We have to talk about what we're drinking so people can drink along. So I am drinking gin and tonic with pomegranate and lime like an aristocrat. That's what I'm doing right there.
We're fancy. I'm just rum and coke in it now.
I feel like such a pansy. Right now, I'm finishing up a Pepsi. But then I have Angry Orchard for later once I'm done with my soda.
My other favorite is Cider Boys for a cider.
I haven't had that one. I'll have to give it a shot. Is it local to where you are, or is it national?
No, I think it's a national.
Okay.
It's just a little harder to find. You don't find it at the grocery stores ever. So usually you have to go to a liquor store to find it. And during Thanksgiving, they come out with this cranberry apple that is fantastic.
Ooh, I'd give that a shot. Around here, there's a local orchard called Windy Hill that's about an hour from me, and they make a fantastic cider. So that's my preferred fall drink, and there's a couple of restaurants near where one of my editors lives that has it on tap. So we end up having a lot of meetings there for some reason.
I'm totally on board with this. This whole COVID thing has ruined my drinking life.
Oh God, you ain't even kidding. Because most of the time I only really drink at conventions. It's been 4 months since I've been at a convention. I haven't gone without some form of business travel, either for writing or my old day job, since I got out of college.
Oh no!
And I'm old. So we're talking 25 years.
I 1,000% understand. I'm having the same problem. I do cosplay at conventions too, along with all the other stuff. And me and my friend of mine that we cosplay together, we're like, okay, so we're working on our costumes. I'm like, this is so defeatist for me. I'm gonna just walk around my living room dressed as Lestat, like just back and forth.
Yeah, I'm a big Magic the Gathering nerd in addition to writing stuff, and I haven't played live Magic face-to-face in 4 months. So I've been buying new cards and building decks, and I'm just like, I just feel like this is terrible.
It is for us epic nerds that like to interact with people. Our favorite nerd bar here got closed down. It was a place called Waypoint 6, and it got closed down because they couldn't make it through the COVID times and stuff like that, which was really sad. But okay, wait a minute. I don't want to talk about sad stuff. We have you. You're epic. We're not talking about sad stuff. Fine. We're in COVID. Okay. You are a writer.
I are.
Yes, many know that. So, where did you start? I might have had a couple shots before we started.
Yeah. Struggling with the words.
All the words.
A lot of us were, wrote as in childhood. Some of us didn't discover it until college years. Like, we always like to hear where that love came from and the weird journey that got you to the books that make you who you are today.
Well, it's definitely a weird journey. It's a weird journey that involves poker, the Lithuanian mafia, and internet gaming.
Okay, I'm totally on board with 2 parts of that. I want to understand the Lithuanian mafia. Go ahead.
I wrote when I was young. I wrote all through high school. I wrote all through college. And then I transitioned into theater for my creative outlet for a long time. And I was a professional lighting designer. I was a director and a producer for a community theater here in Charlotte. I was managing director for a small black box theater. So that absorbed my whole life as far as creative output. And my day job was tied to that as well because I built theaters for a living. So long about 2000, I was sitting at home.
2000.
Yeah, I told you I was old. So fall of 2000, I'm sitting in my parents' living room after Thanksgiving dinner, lunch, and because I grew up in the rural South, so we don't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have breakfast, dinner, and supper. So Thanksgiving dinner is the noon meal. Welcome to the rural South.
Well, you need a nap after that. So then you can do something else later, but any Thanksgiving dinner, you need to go CP's right after that.
So we're sitting there, and I'm sitting on the sofa, and we don't like either the Cowboys or the Lions, so we're not watching football. And the World Series of Poker comes on ESPN. And I see this kind of chubby dude from Tennessee with the most perfect gambling name ever. Chris Moneymaker.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Swear to God, given name.
Wow.
Chris Moneymaker enters a $40 online poker tournament and wins $1 million.
Oh, my goodness.
At the World Series of Poker main event. So I think to myself, well, if this fat redneck can do it, I can do it because I'm a fat redneck and I have a computer.
And that was obviously all of his qualifications. I like it.
We won't get into any of the fact that he'd played poker for years and was an accountant, so had a solid math background. We'll ignore all of that because I certainly did. So I started researching Texas Hold'em poker. And the way I learned about it in 2000 and 2001 is through reading poker blogs, because blogs were still a thing. Actually, they were a very big thing.
Yeah.
So some of my favorite bloggers had a private weekly poker tournament on Party Poker. And the only way you could get the entry code password is if you had a poker blog. I was like, all right, well, it doesn't cost anything to set up a blog, so I set up a poker blog. And I lost copious amounts of money.
What is the name of the poker blog you made, though?
It was called Poker Stage, because I was a theater guy. And it no longer exists, I assume. I don't know. I abandoned it a long time ago. Hell.
Mickey, we're going to see if we can find it.
I mean, it's the internet, so I'm sure that crap is still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I haven't done anything on it in close to 15 years, I think. But whatever. So I started writing about learning to play poker, and I started telling stories, and I got back in the habit of writing. And then a couple of years later, the World Series of Poker comes along, and some friends of mine get jobs writing for various poker websites doing tournament coverage. And I'm thinking, well, since I lose everything I spend playing poker, if I could get a gig writing about poker, it can fund my terrible gambling. So I asked him to hook me up. Over the next 4 years, I wrote something like 400 articles for various poker websites covering online and live poker tournaments.
Wow.
And I wrote 500,000 to 600,000 words of pseudo-journalistic poker coverage. Then I had a disagreement with my editor over a deadline.
Huh?
She thought I had one. I didn't think I had one. And when you have those disagreements, the editor always wins.
Mm-hmm.
This was about 2007, 2008. Well, I said, I'll show her. I'll write the great American novel. I got 2/3 of it done. I wrote a novel, and I am indeed an American. The greatness of the book is certainly up to the reader, but it has been profitable at least, which is more than most American novels can claim.
That's true.
Very true.
In 2009, I self-published it, and I waited for the money truck to back up because I'd been reading various blogs about self-publishing and these people talking about making tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in a month. And I was like, oh, well, you write a decent story, you put it up on Amazon, you make $1 million. That's not exactly how it works.
Yeah, accurate.
The first month that book was on sale, I sold 9 copies.
That's better than some. Some put it up and no.
Yeah. So over the course of the next year or so, I wrote more things and I self-published some more things. And then something happened. I published the first book in the Black Knight Chronicles series, which is a snarky urban fantasy series with nerdy vampire protagonists. I published the first couple in a gap in Jim Butcher's Dresden Files publication schedule. This wasn't planned. I didn't know this. I also didn't know that at the same time as I published the third book of the Black Knight Chronicles, I think it was Spectra Del Rey released the first 3 of Kevin Hearn's Iron Druid novels back to back to back, June, July, and August. So what happened was people would go to Jim Butcher's Amazon page looking for the new Dresden Files book. There wasn't one. Amazon would say, hey, people who bought this Dresden Files stuff also bought this Iron Druid stuff. And there were 3 Iron Druid books. Well, Amazon's also bots tend to display 4 or 5 books. Mm-hmm. I was number 4.
Oh, wow.
So because in 2009, 2010, there weren't very many people writing urban fantasy with humor and male protagonists, it was essentially me and Jim and Kevin, and Jim hadn't put out anything in a while. I made a shitload of money. And then I sold that series to Bellbridge Books out of Memphis. They agreed to republish the first 3 and publish 3 more. Subsequent to that, they bought another set of 3, and we're going to finish the season at 9. And then, as it's gone on, I added on the Bubba the Monster Hunter series because my contract with Bellbridge said they got right of first refusal on anything in that universe.
Mm-hmm.
So thus, the Bubba the Monster Hunter series is in a different universe and doesn't violate my contract. And I can write whatever I want when I wanted. And the contract said that I couldn't release a novel-length work within 3 months on either side of a Black Knight Chronicles release. So I wrote short stories and released them whenever I felt like it.
Fine print is important.
I enjoy your loopholeness. I enjoy it thoroughly. I enjoy finding the loopholes myself.
I did talk to my editor and my publisher about all of these things. They're like, yeah, okay, that works. I'm like, all right, good. And then in 2015, I I watched an ad for NBC's series Constantine.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a spinoff of Hellblazer, which is one of my favorite comic books ever. And I thought to myself, well, that's gonna suck because you can't say fuck on NBC. And John Constantine, without profanity, it's, it's like a fish with a bicycle. What's the damn point?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, well, what would John Constantine look like if I created that type of character, that kind of badass, foul-mouthed mage? Well, he looks like Quincy Harker.
Yeah.
And I launched the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series at the end of 2015. Is that right? I guess it was at the end of 2014 or very beginning of 2015. Midway through 2015, I got laid off from my job and haven't looked back.
Wow.
So you didn't consciously, so for the listening audience and my overdying curiosity, by the way, I actually played in the World Series of Poker.
Really? What event?
Yeah, I made it to round 6. What year was that? I went out there with Jen because I had a local poker game. And what they decided to do with this local poker game, I was one of the only females there, is they put a little bit aside every week and they kept points for who won the night. And so you get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they decided once we had enough money to pay for the entrance fee and do all this stuff, that person would go. And I was 100 points above all these guys. And they wouldn't release it. They wouldn't go, you're going. They kept trying to beat me. And it just kept getting worse for them. And they're like, I don't understand. I remember it was one of the, after I went, I didn't play poker with them much anymore because I realized they just didn't take me seriously. But it was a very interesting experience, I have to say, because I got to the 6th round. I don't even know how many hours I played. It's so cold in those rooms. They move you tables, like once there's fewer tables. So they moved me to this table, and there's 10 people at the table. And I was number 7. There were 6 guys this side of me that all had monster chip stacks, like huge, all 6 of them. And so anybody, because it was me and then there were 3 other chairs, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who sat down, you couldn't bluff with these guys because one of the 6 would call you. Like they would call you because they just, and 12.
Because they had enough chips they didn't care.
Yes. Yeah. 12 people got taken out to the side of me. Wow. I just couldn't get any cards, like, to save my life. And finally I got a pair of jacks. And one guy, went in because they, not like they were in cahoots, but they were. He got a queen on the river. And I was like, whatever. But when I stood up to leave, they actually all stood up and said, you were actually really amazing. Like, you were great. We just want you to know. It was pretty neat. It was neat.
That's very cool.
But
there are a lot of really good people in the poker world. There are a lot of scum too. But I made some fantastic friends that are still dear friends of mine. Some of the best friends I've ever had I made in that world. People that I would trust with my banking information.
Wow, that's brazen. Did you ever go to the World Series? Did you ever play in it?
I didn't play, but I did go. I went out a couple of times just to check it out. What I would do is I worked largely for pokernews.com, and we would have people on the floor doing chip counts and watching the big stars play. And if one of the big stars got busted or sucked out on somebody and busted them, they would write it up on the live blog. And then every morning before I went to work, I'd get up and read the live blog and condense it into a recap feature article.
Oh.
So whenever people logged on to Poker News, my article was the daily recap of the event. And after the first year I worked for them, I ended up doing all the non-Hold'em events because they knew that I could play all of the games, so I could write about all of the games, and not all of our people played anything other than Hold'em or Omaha. So because I could play lowball or deuce to seven, triple draw, and I could play all those things, they put me on all of those events.
Well, that's very. I can't play those games. Omaha confuses the crap
You guys are
out
just
of me.
speaking another language.
I know.
To me.
And, but what I was getting to
To
is,
be honest.
so you did get the money truck to back up to you on your series, but you were still working. What was your day job? What were you being when you were growing up, so to speak?
So up until 2012, I was a lighting and rigging systems designer for theaters, TV studios, and churches. Anything that's on television takes a lot of light, and it's got to be in the right place. Well,
Yeah.
I'm the guy who put the plugs in the right place to be able to put the lights in. It's kind of a half-assed lighting designer, half-assed electrical engineer position. I did that till 2012, and I had some success as a writer, and I quit my job of 18 years to do that. And the first year that I was a quote-unquote professional writer, I did a lot of conventions. I did a lot of appearances. I did a lot of all of the being a writer things except the writing part.
So you're being a kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was.
I like it being a big deal.
I was being a professional writer, except for the part where I didn't write and didn't publish anything. So a year later, I ran out of money for Cobra, and this was before the Affordable Care Act existed. So I couldn't get health insurance. My wife has a couple of pre-existing conditions. I'm fat, which counts as a pre-existing condition. So I couldn't get health insurance, so I had to go back and get another day job. And that went for about so that was 2013. So over the course of the next 2 years, I bounced between 3 different theater industry day jobs. And then finally, my final employer caught on to the fact that I wasn't selling near enough for them to pay me what they were paying me. And they said, yeah, you need to not work here anymore. I said, okay, well, sorry you figured it out. I mean, you're right. I'm complete waste of your money, but I was hoping that you wouldn't catch on for another couple of months.
So then you obviously, no, I love that. You obviously had to learn that it's not just throwing out a novel and hoping it takes off and is like the biggest deal. You have to constantly feed that machine.
Oh, yeah.
How many books do you have out now?
That's always a difficult question because I have released so many standalone ebook shorts and short story collections. I tend to tell people I've got about 24 or about 25 because that's what I've got on the shelf over here, is because a lot of them are collections. But like the first 4 years worth of Quincy Harker books, it was a novella every quarter, and then I bound them in a 4-novella collection at the end of the year. Well, I count that as one book.
That makes sense. So
about 25.
And when it comes to, so you did self-publish, and you do self-publish, and you do traditional publishing, right?
Well, in 2016, I started a press. So I now own a publishing company. And I publish the majority of my work through Falstaff Books, which is the press that I own. But I also do publish with Bellbridge Books still. And then I've got some stuff in anthologies with various presses all over the place.
So when you decided to create a press or become a publisher, we started our publishing company this year. It's called Four Horsemen Publications. We feel we're bringing
the t-shirts.
Yes, that's the t-shirts.
Yes, the t-shirts.
Bringing the publishing apocalypse here. Because as writers, we just got
great year to start that, by the way.
Oh my goodness, we know. But we got done with how it works both traditional and self, like, because there are authors that can't end up in either one of those. They're just not, like, we see so many terrible covers or, not edited pieces of
great work, but and great intentions, but they're not strong enough to compete or brave enough to even compete traditional side. And the same thing, not strong enough, not brave enough to be able to take the reins themselves. So we basically set ourselves up to meet in the middle a little bit and try to access a whole realm of great storytellers that is being missed.
Oh, yeah.
So what, do you publish more than just your work?
Oh, yeah. We have about 50 authors that we publish now. And since 2016, we've published over 200 titles.
Congratulations.
Very,
Yeah.
very cool. What's it like as a publisher?
It's insane. It is at times the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And at times, I think that I feel like it's similar to parenting 50 toddlers all at once, alone.
Yeah.
Except I'm not alone. I have people that work with me and help me herd the cats. And then a lot of times it's like a toddler parenting 50 toddlers because I'm just as bad as any of my writers. So
well,
it is not profitable. The company makes a very small profit each year, but it's not a good way to make a great big ton of money.
It's a passion job for sure.
It is absolutely a passion thing. But from doing the convention circuit for 6 or 7 years, I had met so many fantastic writers and run into so many cases where either they had great books that just weren't getting picked up because the timing was wrong, or the book was going to take just a little bit more polish than a press wanted to put into it, or there was one thing missing that the editor wasn't seeing and they just weren't buying the book because they didn't see it, or they had gotten in bed with a small press that was shitty and unscrupulous and wasn't paying them.
Yeah,
and these are my friends. So
yeah.
I've been really fortunate to, across the convention circuit, meet fantastic writers, some with strong backlists and some with strong front lists, and they've trusted me with their work. And my visibility around the southeastern United States has gotten me writers that have never worked for presses this small before. A.J. Hartley's new YA novel, Impervious, we released that this year, and AJ's a New York Times bestseller. He's an award-winning author. He co-writes with Tom DeLonge, who's the frontman for Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves. He's published by 47 North, which is one of the Amazon imprints.
Right.
But this book was a book of his heart, and it didn't fit New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's a lot of what we're working on too, is stuff that doesn't quite wedge into where it's traditional, and it's more like exploratory. Okay, we actually have to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Yes.
All right.
Don't touch anything.
Oh.
This is the voice of Drinking with Authors. You are at our commercial break, and our commercial is, hey, do you want to be a guest on our show? Or do you have a question for one of the guests on our show? Or do you have a brilliant drink recipe that we've never heard of? That would have to stump us. But you could reach us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com or on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can direct message or even just leave a comment on one of our posts. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
Okay. And we're back. Yes. Woo. Okay. So we're talking about publishing. Let's talk about writing. So how do you get your ideas? I know you're a gamer, yes. So that's probably plays into some of it.
And of course you have the Bubba, the Paranormal Hunter series, and you were mentioning you were a redneck, so I imagine your heritage comes into play sometimes.
Oh yeah. I have told friends of mine who they are in the Bubba series.
They didn't figure out who they were, because I had a friend write me into a book and I'm reading it and I'm like, hey, this girl's a real bitch. And I looked at her, I'm like, wait a minute, is this me? Because she based it on a D&D game. I'm like, is this me? She's like, yes. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine. Skeeter is Bubba's sidekick, and he's a friend of mine from college. But Alvin, my friend who I based Skeeter on, he doesn't read fantasy. He doesn't read what I write. So I just randomly tag him in promo posts about the books and about Skeeter, and then he gets fan messages on Facebook because people love the character. He's never read the character, which makes it even more hilarious.
That is so awesome. Oh my God. I need to do that. I need to write somebody into one of my books that doesn't know they're written into one of my books. But
so, I mean, other than rampant drug abuse in college and alcoholism and the world, most of my ideas and premises come from a what if question. For example, the Black Knight Chronicles came from I was watching True Blood. And in the first season of True Blood, there's an episode where Lafayette goes and he hooks up with this pudgy, doughy, gay vampire dude. And I'm just like, why aren't there more fat vampires? There should be.
There should be.
Because we have more blood and we're slow. So we're an easier catch. We're a target-rich environment. Plus, we're well marbled. We're going to be tastier. And that's where the Black Knight Chronicles came from. I decided to start writing a book with a fat vampire character, and then I decided to spin it into the old comedic trope of the fat guy is the smart one, the tall, skinny guy is the dumb one, and it's a Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello vibe in the series. Bubba came from meeting the author Larry Correia at DragonCon.
I love DragonCon. I missed DragonCon this year. If
you've ever met Larry, he is a giant of a human being. He's got to be like 6'7" and a solid 3 1/4, 350. The man displaces a lot of water.
Wow.
Well, I met him the year before I had my book deal and the year before I had started writing Bubba, and he hands me this really hideously ugly lime green Monster Hunter International baseball cap. And we chat briefly, and I find out that he's a former firearms instructor, and now he writes these books about monster hunters. And I think, if I was a monster hunter, he'd look a lot like you, except he'd be your size, but he'd have more tattoos, like any, because I don't think Larry has any. And he'd have long hair and a long beard. So basically, Bubba is a physical blend of Larry Correia and an old stagehand I used to do shows with named Dr. Nick. It wasn't until about 3 years after I started releasing the Bubba stories that I learned that Larry has a character in his Monster Hunter International series named Bubba. And I was like, whatever, dude, you're from Utah. I got way more claim to the name Bubba than you do.
It's so true. Oh my goodness. So talk about cons. We talked to Jonathan Mayberry, who we have to bring a bottle of whiskey to when we go to DragonCon again.
Well, he's going to get loaded because I owe him a really nice bottle of whiskey too.
Okay. Mine was
Jonathan did me a solid a couple of years ago, and he's a great guy.
He is a fabulous guy, but we're talking about the conventions and meeting people at the conventions and meeting fans. What are your fan experiences been like?
They've been great. Now, let's understand that I'm a relatively small fish and I'm a relatively big human being. So I don't get the mobs of fans that somebody like a Jim Butcher or a Jonathan Mayberry or a Laurel K. Hamilton or Rachel Kane gets at a convention. I don't have that volume of fans. I have hopes. and I ain't dead yet, so it can happen. Also, I'm 6'1", 320 pounds, and I look like I eat babies for breakfast. So when people come up to me, they're not going to be creepers and psychos because I look like I can hurt people. I can't. I'm a giant wuss, but
You just
I
said
look
that.
like an extra from Sons of Anarchy.
Now
So,
they know. Now they know.
yeah, I'm really kind of sweating how big your listenership is now, because I'm like, shit, now they'll know. But my fan interaction has been incredible. I have had people come up to me at cons and wear my shirts, and that's amazing. You know, it's for a small press and self-published author, it's super rare for somebody to show up with a printed copy of your book, because we live and die by ebooks. Print books are such a small part of our distribution model that when somebody comes with one of our books, they worked to get it. They special ordered it, or they bought it off our website. So when there's a book of mine that I haven't already autographed, it's like a red letter day. I'm like, you guys are so awesome.
Yeah.
So my fan interactions have been great. Probably the strangest one was getting fan mail from Whoopi Goldberg.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, she emailed me one day and said she was a fan of my books, the Quincy Harker series. And I emailed her back and asked her for proof of life, because I thought it was a friend of mine pranking me.
Did she give you proof of life?
Yeah, she shot a little video on her phone backstage at the View and sent it to me. And I was like, holy shit, that's Whoopi fucking Goldberg. And then I got her to blurb the series for me, so she's on the covers of the Quincy Harker series.
Very cool.
That is so cool.
Have you ever had anybody dress as one of the characters for you? Have you had somebody cosplay?
No, I haven't. Probably because with urban fantasy, most of my people dress like normal people. They might be dressing like Bubba or Jimmy from the Black Knight Chronicles, or even Harker, but they're just wearing black t-shirts with band names or comic book stuff on them, because that's what my characters dress like I do. So
That makes it easy. We talk to people, and that's one of the things that we talked about, is being like that. One of the recognitions is when somebody cosplays you.
Yeah, as you.
Or has anybody dressed as you?
Yeah, because Jeff and Jonathan McBerry have both had this experience.
Where somebody's dressed as them.
Nobody's done it in this life. I did go to a costume party at a theater conference once with a friend of mine, and we just dressed as each other. Because we're built similarly. So we just swapped name tags and traded jackets, and we dressed as each other. I've been mistaken for other writers. James Ray Tuck, who writes the Deacon Chalk series, he and I are good friends and have done a lot of the same conventions together, and we've signed each other's books because people just think we're the same person. I have more hair and James has more tattoos.
Well, do you have tattoos?
I have about 7. James has a couple, but they start at the wrist and crawl all over him and end at the other wrist. And so, yeah, James is a professional tattoo artist, and he did some of my ink. So, yeah, he's got a lot.
Well, what is coming up for you? What are the next things you're working on?
I'm currently working on the 7th book in the Quincy Harker Demon Hunters series. And hey, we'll give your listeners something that nobody's got yet. I just landed on the title.
Oh!
Titles are hard for me. I hate them, which is why most of my titles are song titles. But this one is called Conspiracy Theory.
Oh! And where was the inspiration?
It's just for the book or for the title?
The title.
It just kind of fits. The whole book is it's a very multi-layered plot, and there's a lot of stuff going on under the surface. And this is the middle book in a 3-book arc for the Quincy Harker series, which also now will cross over with the Bubba series. Because my fans have been asking for that for a few years, and I've been saying, guys, they'll hate each other. Like, we don't care, we want to see it. I was like, all right, fine. You asked for it, Toyota.
I love that.
Careful what you wish for.
So when you're writing, are you a plotter, pantser, plancer? How do you write?
It depends on the length of the work. If it's a short story, I generally have the catalyst idea and maybe a turning point, and then I know where I want to end. If it's a novel, it depends. I tend to outline in chunks. Right now in this Harker book, I'm a little past the midpoint, and I need to take a couple of days off and outline the next 10 chapters. But I kind of know where we're going. So, and I know where we have to end because it's a 3-book arc. So I know the big points that have to happen to get us to the next book for what has to happen in the next book. Sometimes, if it's a first book in a series or an earlier book in the series, I outline vehemently. It just depends it varies from project to project.
But do you ever, so you outline, so we were talking about this recently.
Right.
So there's outlining, and then there's going all the way down the rabbit hole to do these ridiculous synopsises that can be the size of a book.
Yeah.
And
Jeff Deaver does that. The guy who wrote the Lincoln Rhyme thrillers.
Oh, wow.
His outlines are like 200 pages long.
Oh, my gosh. See, I can't.
Yeah, basically his writing process is he goes back in and adds in the dialogue.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Christina Farley does the same thing. Like, she'll almost have, like, if it's a 50,000 word novel, 35,000 of it was written in the outline stage. And I don't know how. I have to have structure and outline, but it still has to be loose enough because my characters always throw a monkey wrench in there. I'm very character driven. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, just wait for it.
Yeah, a lot of the fun for me is the discovery of what's going to happen. So, and I learned that about Deaver's process when he did a speech at a writing group that I was part of at the time. And I was just blown away. He said it took him 11 months to write the outline. What? And a month to finish the book. I was like, son, you have the luxury to release 1 book a year and make good money. Good on you. No.
So do you feel you're very character driven?
Yeah, I do. I think that I feel like it has to be. The books I like to read are really character driven because there's got to be a soul to it. Otherwise, especially in a series, you can get by in a one-shot thriller with a really complicated, interesting plot and lots of cool stuff happening. But if people are going to come back, they're not going to come back because you had an awesome gotcha at the end. They're going to come back because they really like that character and they want to see what's going to happen to them or what they're going to do, depending on the level of agency you built into your character and how they interact with the world.
You feel like your characters. So Val over here's characters.
My characters
take her places. They're like sort of the children you mentioned earlier, the kittens that go running out of the box everywhere, and she's chasing them.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel like you chase your characters or
no? I don't always know what's going to happen when I sit down to write. Just today, I was finishing up a chapter and I was like, oh, I didn't know we were going there. But that's just my lizard brain working. That's in the back of my mind, there's a processor going all the time, figuring out the rest of the book. And it's not that the character is Quincy Harker doesn't grab hold of me and tell me to do things. I'm a different flavor of insane, but I'm not saying I'm not nuts. I'm saying I'm not that specific flavor of nut.
To be fair, I've even had dreams where the character, like all of a sudden I'm at a table and my character's sitting across me and they're like, we have to talk about what you recently wrote because it's incorrect. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you should change the prescriptions. You should work on the meds.
She's entertaining like this. What are you talking about? Let it go. This is like my science experiment happening here.
But the other part of it is, if it works, it works.
Right.
I mean, my process has certainly evolved over the 10 years 11, 12 years I've been writing fiction at this point. When I started, the first book I wrote was just an experiment to see if I could write a book. I had never written anything longer than a couple thousand words before. So I just wondered if I could. I got to 50,000 words and thought, I should figure out where this is going to end. And then I outlined the next 10,000 words and wrote it. And some of my stuff has been to the beat. This is what's going to happen. This is when it's going to happen. I've got rows of note cards laid out on the desk. All of that.
You
go
ahead. You can ask. You're drinking a lot. You ask some questions.
You mentioned that you write a combination of novels, and between the novels, short stories and novellas. Which is more difficult for you to write? Like for me, I like to go on for days. So anytime that I have to write a short story novella, I'm like, I gotta close this. I gotta close this fast. I can't linger on the details. I've got to.
Yeah. So last year was a big short story year for me. I hadn't done any anthology work for several years, and I got invited to be in like 4 last year. I didn't make the word count on any of them. I literally turned in every story and said, I know it's too long, just tell me what to cut. So, yeah, I feel you. Yeah. And Joshua Palmatier at Zombies Need Brains absolutely feels you, too, because he is the one he and Crystal Sarakas had to cut me in the My Battery is Low and It's Getting Dark anthology. And we cut 20+% out of that story. I was over 2,000 words heavy.
Oh, wow.
I was 3,000 words heavy in the story for Predators in Petticoats. I was not heavy in the story I wrote for Laurel K. Hamilton's anthology for Penguin. They were paying more than anybody else, so.
Yeah. You had to pay attention to that one.
Yeah, but I had a 9,500 word limit, and I had a 10,000 word limit, and I got in at 9,500.
Right. That's usually me. I'm like, I got 10,000. I'm at 10,000.
No, I'm at 12,000, and I'm like, that is a short story. You need to cut it back.
Yeah.
Here with flash fiction, it's kind of amazing. I'm the opposite of what you guys are doing. Like, I can go, how many words do I got? 5,000? Here's 5,000 words. There you go. Wrapped up with a bow.
And I used to be like that. But as I've written more and more and read more and more, the descriptions get heavier, the plots get more complicated. Because I came at this from a journalism style of writing, which is very sparse, very tight. It's taken me years to fluff it out to where I can actually write an 90,000 word novel.
Where do you think your biggest strength as a writer is?
I don't know.
I stumped him. Everybody write this down in this moment. 47 seconds in, I stumped him.
So I'm a hack. And I don't say that in a disparaging way. I feel like I'm following in the grand traditions of William Shakespeare and Charles Dickens. I write for money. So I write for a commercial audience. And I think that is one of my strengths, is I write what people want to read. I'm fortunate in that the stuff I like to write also happens to resonate with people. But probably comedy and snark. Oh, no. If I have a real strength, it's dialogue.
I like that. My strength is dialogue too.
And that comes from theater. I've read a lot of Mamet, and I've read a lot of Shakespeare, and I've read a lot of Terrence McNally. I've read the best dialogue writers in history, and I steal from them.
Well, as you should.
Well,
what do you think your biggest weakness is, though?
Description.
Description. You knew that one.
Oh, yeah.
Description, too much description or too little?
Not near enough. I will write a scene that is awesome dialogue that takes place in a white room with no walls, and no one will know what anything looks like. Yeah.
I've done that. I've now added to I try to make a list of things that I do in a revision stage that I know are my bad habits to flush it out. And one of them is going through and adding the description of the background and surroundings, because I get so character focused that I don't even bother with that part.
Yeah, Deb Dixon, who's my editor and she's the publisher of Bellbridge Books, she's done a great job of beating that into me over the last almost 10 years that we've worked together. She's like, paint the picture, use all 5 senses, tell me something. All right, fine. You mean I can't just blow shit up? And then I blow up shit, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope you blow up shit. So let's talk about editing for a moment. This is one of my favorite topics because I think editing is one of the most highly overlooked things, especially for self-published authors.
Self-published new mistake is always bypassing an editor or thinking they don't need an editor, and I think it's worst thought. Out of all the things you go cheap on, that is not the thing you go cheap on.
Put a damn black cover with white Times New Roman letters on it before you skimp on the editor.
So being that you've been successful, because it's different when you have somebody editing for you in the beginning, where do you feel like, when you produce something, how does your editor fit into this for you?
This is absolutely going to be a case of do as I say, not as I do. And that's going to come from the fact that I'm now 10 years into writing 300,000 to 500,000 words of publishable fiction every year. So I'm a lot, and before that, I was writing 100,000 words a year for 5 years. So I'm a lot further along the curve than a lot of people are. I don't need a whole lot of developmental. I know how to tell a story. It's harder with a new project and with a new series. I need more help massaging that story and what those characters would do than I do with an established story. But where the editor now fits in for me is at the copy edit stage. My first run of edits is, are the sentences stupid? Am I being repetitious? How many times do I start a sentence with so or but? And did I go back through and correct all of the places where in caps I wrote check name or check hair color or check eye color?
Do you keep up, a lot of people go
bad habit list.
No, not just no. That's not what I was going to say.
I'm just yelling things. I'm shouting things. Bingo!
Wow. I was going to say, Shaggy! I was going to say, do you keep a sort of Bible or World Book or whatever of all of these things, like the hair colors and the thises and the that's?
One exists. Do I have anything to do with making it happen? Hell no. So but I pay somebody to do that.
Oh. No, that's
cheating.
No, that's outsourcing.
That's outsourcing. I was going to agree with him, not you.
Yeah.
I've got eight sketchbooks and 3 journals that I've put all my subject notes in randomly.
So that brings up this problem here. She does a lot of research to the point where she can't stop herself. Like, she needs to pull way back from going down the research superhighway. But do you do a lot of research for your books at all?
No, I don't. I do research as I as I need to know things. Like I spent a lot of my writing time today on the Glock.com website because I needed to know magazine capacity for a subcompact Glock 23. I needed to know magazine capacity for a Glock 17 standard frame. I needed to know how many magazines could fit in the ammo pouch that'll clip to the belt. But I write the story, and then as I get to something, I'm like, okay, how does that work? And then I just Google it or I Google map it. I do practically no research ahead of time.
So besides the genres you currently write, are there any other, do you have any writing names? Like
Any what?
Different genres under? Any pen names?
No, everything's under my name. It's John G. Hartness. I had a conversation at one point about releasing my novel Amazing Grace under a pseudonym because it is stylistically very different from anything else I've ever done. But I finally just said, screw it. I've got fans. They'll read what I like. And if new people come to this book and they don't like my other stuff, fine. They don't have to. But no, I've never released anything. I wrote some porn under a pseudonym, but that's all gone. And it wasn't under a pseudonym because I was ashamed of writing it. I was ashamed that I couldn't write it well.
So you couldn't write porn well. That's another thing.
I could not.
No.
No.
There's another podcast. My dad wrote a porno. If you have not started listening to that.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm in. That sounds brilliant. But no, everything's under my name, and I currently write in fantasy and urban fantasy. I'm working on a thriller, which is a non-supernatural thriller. I have done one non-supernatural novella, and I've done a little horror. And a lot of urban fantasy straddles the line into horror. It just depends on how many entrails you show.
Very true. Very true.
I mean, the Black Knight Chronicles gets classified as horror comedy, but I never thought that they were horror novels until somebody sent me an award for writing a horror novel. And I was like, fine, I'm a horror writer.
Yay! Look at my words.
It says so right here on the little statue.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is hysterical. Okay. So we are nearing the end of the first podcast. So my question for you is, what advice would you give new authors out there? I kept saying young authors before, and I'm like, they don't all have to be young. Yeah. New authors.
Well, one thing I would say is you don't have to be young. I run into a lot of new authors who are freaking out because they're, oh my God, I'm 30 and I haven't gotten a New York deal. I'm 32 and I don't have an agent. And my standing response is I'm 47 and I have neither a New York deal nor an agent, but I pay my mortgage. I feed my family off of this crap. I published my first novel at 37. So did John Scalzi. He's doing a little better than me, but we're both doing just fine. And this was not a first career for either of us. Gail Z. Martin she's published more books in the last 3 years than I have in my life, and she didn't publish until she was, I think, 40. Yeah, Faith Hunter didn't hit the New York Times bestseller list until her mid-40s. So it's not too late. And write what you want to write. Just write the story you want to write as well as you can write it. It'll find a home or a market. Yeah, maybe you self-publish it because maybe it's a niche market. Maybe you will make more money off of self-publishing your zany co-written horror novel about a group of people taking a tour bus through a psychotic haunted forest than you ever did in any of the presses it was ever published by. Jeff Strand.
I feel like you just wait. I read that book.
Yeah, Haunted Forest Ride by Jeff Strand and Jim Moore. They've made so much more money off that book self-publishing it than they ever did any of the times it was picked up by a press. And I think they might be the third or fourth publisher for it. So write what you want to write. You don't know. Stephanie Meyer didn't know that sparkly vampires were going to make her millions of dollars. You know, John Scalzi did not think he was going to win a Hugo Award for a novella parodying the guys who die on Star Trek episodes.
It's true.
It's very true. You never know when a rare story will go.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to spend your time chasing the hot trend, just keep your day job, because I don't want to do that work. I don't want to work on an assembly line for fiction. I want to write cool stories and do what I want to do. And it's manages to keep a roof over my head, so it can be done.
That is awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this one.
Yes.
If you were to direct your fans to the best way to find you, don't give them your home address, please. We have an author who was like, you can bring your dogs to my house. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Don't do that, because I like cats. But I have a Facebook group that is John G. Hartness Books. That is the best way to interact with me on a regular basis. You can also check out my Facebook page, which is John G. Hartness Novelist. I don't accept very many Facebook friend requests because I'm getting close to the cap and people are insane. So,
yeah.
But my group is always open. Also, falstaffbooks.com. And you can buy autographed paperbacks of all of my stuff, both on falstaffbooks.com and on johnhartness.com.
Perfect. You have been amazing and wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Podcast with us.
Thank you.
So I've been Erica Lance.
And I'm Valerie Willis. And this has been Drinking with Authors with John Hartness.
Oh,
that was... Why is it no more rum and Coke?
No, all of the rum and Coke.
All of the rum and Coke.
All of it.
I are hard to think.
Okay, we'll be seeing you next time.
Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Are you wondering what I'm reading? I'm reading the Author's Accountability Guide, produced by the Four Horsemen. Do you need a day-to-day guide on how to write your book, novel, prose, whatever you're doing with your life? Because writing is hard. This has day-by-day instructions, week-by-week tracking, and motivational things from your muses. So, grab a drink, grab a book, and get some fucking writing done.
Hey, look at that. It says it's recording.
It says it's recording. Go us. Okay, Literary Briefs. Okay, this is Literary Briefs episode. My name's Erica Lance.
And I'm Valerie Willis.
And do you think you can get the guest name right this time?
And we're with John Hartness for his Literary Briefs.
Okay.
And I don't wear briefs, so can I actually be on this podcast?
This will be the Literary
Boxer Briefs.
Literary Boxer Briefs episode with John Hartness. Okay. So
I am wearing pants.
Well, you're one step ahead of the rest of us, so
they're pajama pants.
Yeah.
So I'm only half a step ahead.
How about yoga pants? Does that count?
You're a white girl. That's part of the uniform.
You know, that's true. That's true. Let me get a Truly out of the fridge. No. So, I don't have a Truly in the fridge. I'm totally joking. Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking. I don't have a lot left, but I am drinking gin with pomegranate and lime. And
you've got me messed up on rum and Coke.
Yes.
I'm still on my first Angry Orchard, but I plan to watch Bosch and pound cider for the rest of the night. So
I hope so, because you're supposed to drink and know things. I was expecting a lot more of the drinking. So when I see you at Dragon Con and we see Jonathan Mayberry after we give him whiskey that we owe him.
You owe him. Everyone knows John's got a good deal going on. How many people owe him whiskey?
I don't know. We'll find out next Dragon Con.
It's funny because drinking is part of my brand, and I tell young authors all the time, you've got to be in the bar because business gets done in the bar. And they're like, how do you do business when you're drunk? I said, I never said you had to get drunk. I usually have 2 beers a night. You just have to be in the bar.
Yeah.
You got to be in the room where it happens.
Oh my God.
You know, ginger ale looks just like a gin and tonic or whatever, you know?
Oh yeah, no, you can just have a Coke and make it look like a rum and Coke, but nobody knows.
Plus, nobody cares.
Mm-mm. Not unless you're sloppy drunk.
Oh, why are you pointing at me, looking at me?
Not unless you're Val sloppy drunk.
I only drink on the podcast.
I know.
And that makes this worse.
It does make it worse.
The problem is that you do a podcast every day.
We don't.
She would not make it every day if we did that.
You don't have a drinking problem. You have a podcasting problem.
There you go.
It's a broadcast.
That's
Broadcast. A podcasting.
What is?
You said you don't stop talking. I ask my rapid fire questions now. You are really why we can't have nice things most of the time.
My tongue has betrayed me.
Your tongue has betrayed you. You should put that in a book. Okay.
Yeah, that's a story of my college years.
Like on so many levels. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, rapid fire question.
Sure.
I did theater. I know what theater is like.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly.
It was not a cast party until somebody got naked in the living room.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So here's the thing about our delicate little Val, who writes smut, by the way.
Oh no.
She writes erotica novels under a different name.
Oh,
Are you going to
make me tell him what the name is?
No, I think you should tell him the name of your first book.
Sleeping with Sasquatch.
I think I've seen that.
Oh, that makes me feel good.
Well, remember, I write Bubba the Monster Hunter.
Right.
There's a scene in season 2 of Bubba the Monster Hunter that is legendarily known as Squatch Dong. Because Bubba enters into hand-to-hand combat with a Sasquatch, and Bigfoot don't wear pants.
There's the first chapter. Okay, so there's shifters. And
so is this the Urban Legends Erotica Collection
That's
Book
her.
1?
That's her. Yes.
Then yes, you have to tell people your pseudonym because Jesus Christ, really?
Yes, look at this mess she turns into.
It wasn't taken. I even checked Pornhub.
Oh my God, cuddling with Chupacabra.
Naked with the New Jersey Devil. Laying with the lady in white. No, laying with the blue. And then the next one coming out is
Wonton Woman in White. And then beating it with Bloody Mary.
We have fun making these titles up. By the way, if you ever need title help, I'm pretty brilliant at titles.
She's very
You're like Chick Tingle.
Yeah. It's so true.
That's great.
There's a dialogue in the first chapter of Sasquatch where he's like, "Come on, buddy, no one likes to see Bigfoot and a white beater and cargo shorts."
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's right. It's a trick.
So there you go, and she's bright red, so that's awesome. Okay, rapid fire question number 1. You're fired. Okay, what is your favorite book of all time?
The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy.
Oh, why?
The protagonist of The Prince of Tides felt a lot like who I was in a lot of ways. As a young person, I read that book in high school, and a lot of the way that Tom Wingo is the protagonist, and a lot of the way he grew up as a bookish Southern guy from South Carolina who felt like he didn't fit in because he was a little too sensitive. He was a little too lost in words. It rang true with me on a lot of levels. Pat Conroy is my favorite author of all time. And people always look at me funny when I say that because obviously he's not a genre fiction guy. They expect me to say Tolkien or Bradbury or Asimov. And I'm like, nah, give me a good old-fashioned redneck. So yeah, The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy.
Awesome.
And on that
Okay.
same breath, what is your least favorite book of all time?
I have no idea because I don't finish anything I don't like.
Yeah, I'm not alone with this.
I didn't think. Why are you telling me that? You know,
Life is too short to read shitty books. That's why you get the Amazon sample.
That's true.
True.
Very
I
good.
don't have to pay for the first 10%, and if I'm not hooked in that, I'm not going to read the book.
You get
Although the Scarlet Letter sucked donkey dick. Nathaniel Hawthorne can just fuck himself right off.
That should be a quote for this episode.
Nathaniel Hawthorne can fuck himself right on. That's it. That's a new business card. That's what's happening
Yeah.
there.
Oh, man.
Is that because, was that something you had to read in school? We were talking
Yeah.
about this recently because it's now changed where there's not a required reading list anymore in schools, really.
Then how do you discuss the books if you don't all read the same book?
Because they make them do book reports on, and I say this only because my children are in their early 20s, but like my daughter was able to read Twilight as her book in high school, one of the book report books.
I mean, I'm fine with that for a book report book, but, you know, for an English class, you need to read specific books to get specific things. Like, you read Twelfth Night in senior English in South Carolina, or AP English, so that you can get Shakespeare's comic tropes. If you all just randomly read a Shakespeare play or a Elizabethan piece of theater, you're not all going to be able to talk about mistaken identity and hidden dick jokes, because Shakespeare's full of hidden dick jokes.
Exactly, but I'll tell you, my kids didn't have required reading. It's not as big of a thing. It's really, welcome to Florida though. But we were
Hell no.
Yeah, no, just so you know, we're in a race. We're trying to win the race right now. Go, we're number one.
Hey, we gave y'all a present earlier this year. I'm from North Carolina. We gave you the Republican National Convention.
Yeah,
Oh.
thanks for that so much. No, I work in HR as my current day job right now, because even though we started our public, and we're not quite there of the paying the roof over the head yet, but we're getting there. We're getting
Good.
there. And but I do HR, and I have a 1,000-person company I'm in charge of all the HR for, and it's interesting to me because, like, I made the rule. I sent everybody to work from home. I'm like, you're all working from home. Like, this is just ridiculous. You're all staying there. And the amount of people that are like, can we come back in the office? And I'm like, no, you can't, because you can't practice social distancing. Nobody wears a mask down here because everybody thinks, like, you are taking away my inalienable God-given right to get sick corona and die. Okay.
Yeah, fine. You can have whatever unalienable God-given right you want. Stay the fuck away from me, you moron.
Exactly. No, I feel like we're the freak show state. But I was going to ask, because there was required reading. One of my favorite books was To Kill a Mockingbird that was required reading. What were some of your favorite books that were required?
Well, To Kill a Mockingbird. The odd one that I loved that most people hate was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I loved that book. It's the book that Apocalypse Now was based off of.
Oh.
I didn't know.
I know. I was sitting there. I'm like, I missed that one because we were talking about that weird rose one with the woman who slipped by the dead body. That one mortified me.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
I didn't have either.
It's a short story that they made me, because I got to pick, if the teacher accepted it, I got to pick what book I was doing for the book report part when I went to school. And I wanted to do Gaijin by James Clavell. And she's like, you're not old enough to be reading this. And I said, but you just had us read a short story about a woman sleeping in bed for years with her husband's decaying body, and that was okay? And she's like, no.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to remember because I read so voraciously. I don't remember what was assigned and what I just read. But I remember Heart of Darkness being assigned, and I really liked it, and most of the rest of my class hated it.
You still voraciously read like that?
I read a lot, yeah. I think it's critical for a writer to read, and to read in your genre.
I agree.
You have to know what the tropes are.
Totally.
Right.
Agree 1,000%. What do you read outside your genre?
I read a lot of thrillers. I read a lot of serial killer books. Lee Preston and Lincoln Child.
Another state. I feel like we're. I feel like that. I feel like this is my brother. I'm gonna move.
Come on. House right around the corner from me's for sale.
Perfect.
I got a big backyard. We can hang. I read a lot of serial killer novels. I really loved Vince Flynn's military thrillers until he died. I don't like the style of the stuff that has come after him. I usually loved about 2/3 of all the Tom Clancy books. He typically had one plot thread that I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, can we just not? But yeah, that's most of it.
Peeves? What are when you're reading a book, what are the things that get you to just chuck it or delete it? I mean, we are Kindle age.
Boring ass sentence structure. Boring sentence structure. If it's all simple declarative sentences, you can do that for emphasis, obviously. But if the first half dozen paragraphs are da 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 period da 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 period da 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 period, I'm like, oh, you bore me. Go away. Put some fucking poetry in your work.
Do you get asked to read a lot of people's work? Do people reach out to you asking you to read their work?
Less now that I run a press, because I get asked a couple of times a year to blurb a book from a friend of mine, and I almost always say yes if I have the time to do it. But I've been very clear most of the time when people say, hey, can you take a look at this, that I'll only read unpublished work if it's by an author who's already under contract or if it's a book that's on submission. Because I don't want to deal with bullshit about somebody coming back 5 years later and saying I stole their shit.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is to cover my ass, but a lot of it also is just to cut down on the volume.
Do you ever end up having a friend ask you to read a book that you read it and you're like, don't like this at all?
Yeah, it's happened.
Are you honest with them about it, or what do you do?
Well, if I don't like it at all, I probably don't finish it. And then when they ask, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't my thing. I don't think I'm your target market. It didn't resonate with me, so I didn't finish it. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if they're really my friend, then they'll get that. And if they're really a professional, they'll get that. Yeah. But if they're not, then if they're not either of those things, then I don't need to deal with them again anyway. So then it's fine.
That's true.
That's true.
What about reviews? So obviously you get reviews because people review
Yeah,
books.
Apparently I do.
Do you ever read them?
Very rarely. Sometimes they're brought to my attention. Like somebody will say, hey, did you see this? And I'm like, no. I don't go out and look for them. I learned that doing theater, that way just leads to heartbreak and madness. When I released the latest Bubba book, I was very gratified to find out a couple of weeks later that it had some reviews and they were all 5 stars. I was like, hey, that's nice. I still don't know what people said about the book. They bought it. So
reviewing, do you review?
I do not. I don't think there is any upside for me as a professional writer or a publisher. There is no benefit to me to ever review a book. If I review a book positively, then someone who knows about our connection is going to think, oh, well, they just did that. He just said that book was good because he's friends with them. And if I review it negatively, I could hurt someone's feelings or career. So I don't review at all. Now, that said, I did do a YouTube series earlier this year where I did something called 5-minute book reviews, and I did about a dozen. And the only things I would review were books I loved. I wouldn't review it if I didn't love it. And I'm pretty sure that I didn't review anything by anyone I knew. And most of the books I read were by people that were way bigger than me. Douglas Preston doesn't give a single shit what I think about his book.
Well, for that question, what about fangirl moment? I call it a fangirl moment, but what is your best fan story? Like fans
like
approaching
me being a fan?
No, first fans approaching you, and then I'm going to ask that you being a fan.
All my fan interactions are different and precious in their own way. Some of my fans have bought me dinner. I have a standing lunch date at Dragon Con with a pair of fans that I refer to as my Canadians. We go to lunch every year. And that's just fantastic. It's a great friendship that has grown out of them being fans. I had a fan design the t-shirt logo for Bubba the Monster Hunter, and I sent him a t-shirt in exchange for him doing the logo, and him coming to a con wearing, and us taking a picture of him wearing the t-shirt. That was pretty awesome. So all of them are great. Even just somebody coming up and saying, at a signing and saying, hey, I read this. This was really cool. I'm like, hey, thanks. That's fantastic.
Have you had a fan girl kind of moment, though? Like, I think a couple of them have talked about people screaming their names or completely, like, going crazy in front of them. Have you had that? The kind of fangirl moment.
Nah. I would like to think that the persona I put forth is one that lets people know that I'm just a dude. I'm not anything special. I'm just some fat guy who writes vampires and dick jokes for a living. I want to be the writer people think they can have a beer with, and then come up to me at Dragon Con and have a beer with me.
Yes.
I think that's all. I'm putting down beer with you as soon as
you like
beer
cider,
poker game.
like cider and poker.
The lobby bar of the Westin. That's the writer's bar.
Yep. That's what.
So,
we were
and on that, because you were saying that you go to the conventions a lot. You're a big convention goer.
Oh yeah.
So on that same note, like she was saying, what author or person you met at your conventions and going to these events that you fangirled, basically?
God, that's a list. Getting Jim Butcher to autograph a book while sitting on a panel with Jim Butcher, that was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
I was sitting next to Jim, and I still actually haven't gotten him to sign a book for me, because that one was a friend of mine's. I got to remember that next time we're going to be at the same con, because I have a bookcase that is autographed books by writer friends of mine. I'm gesturing over here like, A, we're not on an audio podcast, or B, you guys can see it in the camera shot. But
I was letting it go. I was like, how much cider do you drink? Because
yeah, no, I have a whole bookcase, and it's got signed stuff from Mayberry. It's got signed stuff from Tim Zahn. It's got signed stuff from Chuck Wendig. All my Authors and Dragons buddies. Laura Ann Gilman. It's got a bunch of Scalzi, Ernie Klein, Dave Butler. It's got a lot of awesome people on it. The biggest fanboy moment for me was Mercedes Lackey.
Oh.
And being a Southern guy, there's a story. Because there's always a story. Because Southern men like to drink whiskey, fornicate, and tell stories, not necessarily in that order. Thank you, Robert Penn Warren, who was a Southern man and a fantastic storyteller. The first year I went back to Dragon Con, this was before I had a book deal. I had a couple of self-published books out. And I had met with Deb from Bellbridge Books, and we were dancing around whether or not they were going to pick up the series. So we were going to have a meeting, and I knew that was going to happen. But I was going to Dragon as a fan, and I took some books to have them signed, and one of the books I took was Magic's Pawn by Mercedes Lackey, which is one of my favorite books. It's one of those few times when you can look back at a specific book and see that it changed your worldview. Because I grew up in the rural South in the 70s and 80s. To say that my upbringing was narrow is to understate the meaning of the word narrow. Magic's Pawn and that trilogy was the first time I'd ever seen homosexual people presented as anything other than a joke or an abomination. And it completely changed my worldview. And obviously, I never would have had a successful career in theater had I continued to hold that homophobic bullshit idea in my head. So a big part of my life was positively influenced by this book series. And I saw that Misty was going to be at DragonCon. So the only book I carried around with me all weekend was Magic's Pawn, because I had two things on my list. I wanted to get a book deal and meet Mercedes Lackey. So you guys have done Dragon, you know the hotels.
Yeah.
I was standing outside Sway, which is the lobby bar at the Hyatt. And it was about 12:30. It was time to eat lunch. I don't remember where my wife was. I think she was going to a costuming panel or something. And I noticed this dude standing there, leaning up against the wall right outside the hostess stand. I said, "Hey, are you in line?" He said, "Nah, I'm not going in there. It's too expensive. I'm just waiting on a friend." "You can go ahead." And then I looked at his name tag, and it was Larry Dixon.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. And I said, "Oh, hi. This is weird. Maybe it happens to you all the time. I don't know. But I have a book in my bag that I really would love for you and Ms. Lackey to sign, if that's okay." And he said, "Oh, sure." And then he said, "Wait a minute. There's an unautographed Mercedes Lackey book floating around somewhere in the world?" I said, "Well, honestly, there's a bookshelf full of them in Charlotte, but..."
You can come over.
"Yeah, let me know. I'll bring more." So he gave me a little autographed book plate, and then he said, "So are you going to the Bain Roadshow?" I said, "No, I'm going to go in here and get something to eat." He said, "Oh, no, that's way too expensive. Come with me." I was like, "The hell? Am I getting kidnapped by Larry Dixon?" I'm not terribly concerned about this because Larry's not a big man.
I was going to say, you seem a little more intimidating than the be easily kidnapped type.
Yeah, I'm about 2 Larry Dixons. So he pulls out his flip phone, because Larry, and he makes a call. And he says, "Hey, I met a friend. Bring some snacks. We'll meet you at the Bain thing." He says, "Come with me. Misty's bringing lunch." At the time, I don't know that Mercedes Lackey goes by Misty to a lot of people. So I have no idea who he's talking about. His other friend comes up, and we go downstairs, and I'm like, "Well, if you're bringing snacks, I'll buy us a couple of Cokes and some cups of ice." So then this middle-aged lady toddles up with this big canvas bag and says, "Hi, I'm Mercedes Lackey." And I was like, "Holy shit, you're Mercedes Lackey." And we proceed to sit in the back of the room at the Bain Traveling Roadshow and turn chairs around in a circle in the last 2 rows and have a picnic as she pulls Lunchables out of this bag. And that was my first meeting of Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon. Was Misty brought me Lunchables and we ate it in the back of the Bain Roadshow. And then about 2/3 the way through, she got up and she went and talked about her new releases and then came back and had more cheese and crackers.
Wow. That is an epic story. I've been going to conventions, and sometimes I host panels at conventions. I work with a local writers group called Wordier Than Thou. And they are a local not-for-profit, help writers community, that sort of thing. So we've done it, and it's very interesting to me because I think like, I love how down to earth you are, and I think I think it's really important to be very down to earth and have moments like that where you can interact with people. And I've had the best experiences accidentally running into people at Dragon Con and stuff like that. My friends think I have some weird superpower because we'll start talking about a person, and then all of a sudden we'll be walking down the street, or I'll walk into Starbucks and there they'll be, and I'll be like, "Oh, you're blah." And they're like, "How the fuck do you do that?" Like,
so David Coe did this to me at the bar at Dragon Con one night. I'm sitting there and I'm talking with David and Faith Hunter, and we're just hanging out because we've done a lot of the same conventions together and we're really good friends, and Faith and David have done a lot of good things for me in my career. And this guy walks up, and he's about Faith and David's age, a few years older than me, and his name badge is flipped around, so I can't really tell who he is. So I can't tell if he's guest, attending, pro, fan, just like whatever. And David says, "Hey, John, this is my friend Rob." So I shake his hand and we chit-chat a little. And then a few minutes later, he wanders off to talk to somebody else, and his name badge flips over. And he wanders off, and I was like, "Hey, David, yeah? If you're going to introduce me to Robert J. Sawyer, why don't you use his full name, you asshole?" 2 years later, Rob was knighted by Canada. He was given the equivalent of the President's Freedom Medal or some kind of Order of St. Hoopty for Canadian literary achievement. He's also a super nice guy. I've run into him a few times since then.
That is awesome, though. No, those are the kind of moments I love, where I'm sitting there and I'll just be talking, like, run into them, especially at, like, the Marriott and stuff like that. I'm talking, and my friends are like, "Were you just talking to?" And I'm like, they're human beings. They're not like something that comes out of a box.
Because my friends used to fuss at me all the time, because back in my high school years and stuff, I went to concerts every Friday and Saturday night. And I'd have pictures of me after hours outside in front of the Virgin Record store at Disney Springs of me with, like, Lacuna Coil and 3 Days Grace. And I'm like, how'd that happen? And because now they're, like, really big names, but back when I saw them, they weren't. And that's the cool thing is about going to those conventions, because some of the authors you meet today could be the next J.K. Rowling in a matter of a year or a couple.
Let's hope they're a little better than that.
Yeah, no, I was going to... Wrong name.
Sorry, Stephen King.
Yeah, we're not pissed at Steve this week.
Yeah. She's under a lot of fire.
Yeah, no, she needs to stay quiet and talk about magic, and that's it. Okay.
She needs to talk about a damn thing. Just swim in your buckets of money, Scrooge McBitch.
Yeah. So, on that note, let's talk about your podcast a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Valerie, you just did it again. We talked about this. So let's talk about your podcast a little bit. Authors and Dragons. So I'm assuming you play Dungeons and Dragons. Is that what you're playing?
We do. We're a group of 6 comedy fantasy authors playing D&D really badly.
I love it. I love every moment of it. So, obviously, you said you edit out the parts where you're not doing things. So how long have you guys been doing this campaign?
5 years.
Oh my goodness.
We've accomplished, I think, 1 major quest goal in 5 years. We suck.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, any good D&D campaign, as a DM and a player, everybody goes left, and that's what happens.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Drew Hayes is our DM, and he introduces himself as the captain of this shit ship. And he's right. It's me, Drew Hayes, who writes Superpowers and 5 Minute Sherlock, Rick Gualtieri, who writes The Tome of Bill, Steve Wetherill, who writes The Doomsayer Journeys, Joseph Brassey, who wrote Skyfarer and Dragon Road, and Robert Bevan, who writes the Critical Failures series.
Oh my God. I just had a fangirl moment. Oh my God, I love that series so much. I love what he did. series.
I'll hook y'all up.
Please do, because I read that book and my boyfriend's not an avid reader and he got totally addicted because I always hate it when you read books that are about like D&D campaigns and everything's fucking perfect in the book. His book, it's have you read these books at all?
No.
Oh my God.
I've never read a book with more poop jokes.
Oh, I love the poop jokes and the snot and none of it, there is no decorum whatsoever. Like it's about these guys who, based on the
it's a portal fantasy.
Yeah, portal fantasy, and they're in the D&D world, and they don't quite get that. Like they're still acting like themselves from the other world in the D&D world, and it doesn't work like that. Like them talking about having to memorize spells, I was peeing myself laughing because in normal D&D you're like blah blah spells blah blah blah. They're having to sit and read the books to remember this.
It's funny because Drew also writes a series of portal fantasy-ish books called the Spell, Swords, and Stealth. Most people call them the NPCs series. And the different takes that they have created on that frame is really fun to watch and read. And then Drew and Rick and I all write Nerdy Vampires. And they're all dramatically different.
That is amazing. Sorry, I just had a little fangirl moment in the middle. Okay.
That's so cute.
It is.
I'm not allowed to read Bevan's books in bed at night anymore because I laugh and scare the cat and wake up my wife.
That is a great sign.
I think it's a great sign because there's not a lot of books in the world that you can find it funny, but I love it when you actually like laugh out loud.
Yeah.
I can say the first book that I had that happen with was a Sharon McCrum book called Bimbos of the Death Sun.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever read this? No, you didn't.
No.
Lies.
No.
Have you read Bimbos of the Death Sun?
No.
So this book was written when we were younger. I'm going to say we were younger because we're not far off in age. I can already tell. Just by your stories. That and we're siblings, obviously, from other parents. But she wrote a book, and it's about this science professor who writes a book about sunspots and their effect on computers. And the publisher changes it into this novel and puts a fur-clad bikini person and calls it Bimbos of the Death Sun and tells him he's got to go to a convention, and this is before conventions were kind of cool, to sell this book. And it's a murder mystery there, but you could tell she's been to these conventions. Like, she had it nailed. And it was so funny. I'm sorry, I just went off, but it was
a great cover.
Yeah. Well, the Bimbos of the Death Sun.
Yeah, I'm on Amazon right now. I just downloaded the sample.
Yeah, I think you will love it because it really was like one of those speak to you kind of books, and I was laughing when I started reading it, and I realized, like, I stopped for a moment and I went, this is one of the first books I've ever like actually laughed out loud while reading a book because she nails the nerddom perfectly.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, but so how often do you guys play?
We play every other week. We're not just bi-coastal, we're intercontinental because Steve lives in England. Uh-huh. And so we've got Jersey, Atlanta, Charlotte, Texas, Seattle, Corby, England. So getting us all together at the same time is challenging. So we play every 2 weeks and we release content every week, but in between we do side quests where we bitch about nerdy stuff. And that may or may not be all of us. Like, for example, the guys were recording this afternoon. Oh. I was playing Diablo 3.
He took a break.
I love Diablo.
There's a new season, and I haven't leveled this character up to 70 yet, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did. I did, and then redid it, and then redid
You're
it
like
again.
A failure as an
you are not
player. I've never
you
played
don't
Diablo.
Understand.
I've never played Diablo.
You're not on my podcast anymore. That's it. I'm gonna.
But have you played Borderlands?
My co-host on my podcast.
But I've played Kingdom Hearts. My kids love it. It's because I have 2 little kids, and I have to be cautious because they're like ninjas. They sneak out of their cages and.
You're not supposed to say put your kids in cages on podcasts. That's strike 2 or 4 or 10. So you guys play all the time. What levels are your characters?
8.
In
5
5 years, they're level 8?
Yeah. I told you, we're bad.
You-
We're not good.
How long have you played D&D?
This time, 5 years.
How long have you played D&D in your life? I can say I was coloring the dice, so with the
I started in 1985. And then I played in middle school and was roundly ridiculed for it. I played a little through high school, and I played in college and a little bit after college. But then, I don't know, I probably stopped 96, 97 and got back into it 20 years later when we started the podcast.
Oh my gosh, whose idea was it to do this? Because you guys are all, epic writers here.
I think it was Drew and Bob. I think it was Drew and Bevan who knew each other and were talking, and then I think Bevan knew Rick, and I think Rick knew Joe and me. And then we had a guy drop out, and Bevan knew Steve. And now I'm Steve's publisher.
That was epic. Well, just pencil my name in if you have anybody drop out.
Well, we'll talk, because we actually put on a convention now.
Ooh.
And we're going to be doing a digital element to that convention in about a month. So we'll talk.
Please, definitely. I'm so excited.
I still feel like I'm noob level when I play D&D.
You should listen to the podcast. We've been at it for 5 years, and we're still not good.
Right. True.
What is your favorite character? I'm going to ask that question.
Oh, well, Fandingo the Fantastical, my Authors and Dragons character.
And he is a?
Huh?
What is he? Mage, bard, what?
Oh, he's a bard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I knew it was a bard. I was just trying to be nice.
Oh, yeah, no, totally bard. He's a half-elf. He's a half-elf and pansexual bard. Because he's a bard, so of course he's pansexual.
Oh my God, bards. Bards.
It's okay. I just rolled a character for my friend is looking into the Pathfinder's circus, all the circus content, and she's going to DM it. But I made a hobgoblin bard who is a mammoth speaker, because when you're a mammoth speaker, the mammoth gets expert level barding. And I'm like, I'm totally going to bust in here like Prince Ali.
Hell yeah.
She's like, you're joking, right? And I said, we're in the circus.
Yeah. Fandingo has, he has a guitar that shoots, he has an electric guitar that shoots daggers out of the back of it.
Oh, that is epic.
Which he never uses, because at this point, I'm the primary spellcaster for our party, so... With 5e, bards get College of Lore.
That's right.
That means bards get Fireball.
Yeah, I know. Bards became suddenly useful. I feel like somebody that was on that particular committee writing those books loves bards and was like, I am tired of them being the idiots of the group. We are going to give them something powerful.
Yeah. So now I'm a College of Lore bard with the Magic Initiate feat. So I have Firebolt, I have Acid Splash, I have Chromatic Orb, and I have Fireball. So...
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm...
wreck some folks.
I'll blow some shit up.
I feel like we could talk for hours and hours, and I want to do that because...
I blow up our barbarian all the time.
I loved original D&D where you could parry the fireball with the mage, like just
nice
parrying the fireball with the mage, and it had really bad rules. First edition had terrible rules.
York is a Path of the Bear, so when he's raging, he only takes half damage from fire. So then if he makes a save, he takes quarter damage.
Oh, and if he fumbles his save, you blow him up and he's toast.
Well, I'm also the healer, so it's fine.
Oh my God. You are like the most epic bard I've ever met in my life.
That's why it's his favorite character.
Yeah.
He can do everything. And play music.
Do you play
music? Me personally? Oh, hell no.
No, I meant your bard.
Oh, yeah. He's a rocker. You can find out more about him in the True Confessions of Fandingo the Fantastical, which is available now on Amazon.com. It's co-written by myself and E.M. Kaplan, which that means that E.M. Kaplan wrote a book and I told her which things that didn't work with my backstory for the character. And then I made like 3 changes to the text. That's how co-writing works, right?
Yeah, totally. Throw your name on that. I co-write with you all the time, Val. You need to add my name to your books.
To the Honey Cummings ones or that?
You know I don't care about that. I write erotica too under a different pen name. You know I'm like, I made her go to FetishCon last year.
Oh, that was you tricked me. You said, "Hey Val, do you want to be on panel?" I'm like, I love panels. Yes.
I'll hook you guys up with my friend who runs the literary track for Frolicon in Atlanta.
Yes, please do.
I don't know what that is.
It's okay. We're gonna go. It's fine.
It's a convention where they have to put down plastic on the floor for some of the panels.
Well, that's what they did at the other one.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a pony play. It was a pony play. One next door that totally threw.
She kept asking me, "What are you doing with your head? Where are you looking?" I said, "Well, naturally, if my eyes catch on the things that you should not see, I would drop them. But the problem here is when I drop them, I see more of that, and then I have to look up."
She spent most of the panel doing this, looking up and away. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Anyway, okay, we need to wrap up this podcast. We talk for hours, and we're done embarrassing Val for right now. No. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Podcast. This has been amazing. I've been Erica Lance.
And I've been Valerie Willis.
I have been and will continue to be John Hartness.
And thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Bye.